that she has enough ability to lift her arm this high. And if she doesn't, I'm going to stick with the kind of mobilizations we just did. But if she can get up to about 90 degrees of shoulder flexion, I'm going to work the posterior capsule and the inferior capsule this way. And one way that I'm going to do it is by bracing her. Take my pokers out. There we go. I'm going to brace the back of her shoulder, her scapula, with part of my shoulder and sternum or chest, whatever's comfortable, whatever fits, okay? I'm going to push this against her scapula. I'm going to ask her to bend her elbow, and I'm going to reach around from the front here and here. So now, when I have her elbow and I pull her humerus back towards me, I've stabilized her scapula, so I'm getting movement at the glenohumeral joint. Now I search for that area of tightness on her. I might go out, might go in, you have tightness, ooh, right there. So I'd stay there on her, and I just oscillate in that direction. Doing okay?
Yeah.
Pull in that direction, okay? I can go up here and pull down a little bit for more inferior capsule if I wanted to, or I can pull medially or laterally depending on where I find it. If I do this, right there it's tight, and I would just move into it this way and oscillate for about a minute. But I've braced her scapula here, so it's anchored, and then I can do that. It's a nice maneuver, gives you more freedom of movement, and you can feel more specific tightness in the capsule. Suppose I couldn't get it in a seated position for some reason, she couldn't tolerate it or I couldn't feel it. We can do the similar thing in the supine position. So I'm going to have you drop on your back. Come around here. It's really the same maneuver. This time, I'm going to ask you to slide down. Like that. This time, I'm going to bend your elbow like this and just relax it like that. I'm going to take this hand, slide it under her shoulder to stabilize her scapula. I tend to like to go over their shoulder like this, but you could go under it as long as you don't get in the way of the humerus. So by going here like this, now I can brace her against my body, my sternum, my abdomen, and I could drop and push straight down. This way, I could gradually take her into more flexion and push inferiorly more and more for the inferior capsule here. So I'm using my body weight essentially to push down. This hand is on the scapula, just stabilizing it, holding it steady, while I rock the humerus in the glenoid fossa. You okay with those?
I didn't see your right hand was over her elbow.
My right hand
yes.
was on the olecranon,
Okay.
and I braced her against my chest wall here, my sternum. That's where it fit for me. You figure out where it works for you. You're going to use your body weight to drop and push down, so you're not trying to do it with your arm. Small increments. All right, the other piece we need to know about now is the scapula. So there's the scapula. There's no, it's got an attachment at the clavicle, the AC joint. But other than that, the scapula is really a floating platform for muscles to attach to. There's a joint, it's not a synovial joint, a joint between the scapula and the rib cage, scapulothoracic joint. It's not a joint in the classic sense at all. It's a soft tissue kind of joint. But people get adhesions there. They get restrictions underneath the scapula subscapularis. If the scapula is bound and not freely movable, that affects the rest of the shoulder girdle. For insidious shoulder problems, people who develop these without a particular incident slowly over time, mostly I find that their shoulder problem is a scapular problem. I like to say, as the scapula goes, so goes the shoulder complex. Now, I'm not talking about trauma. If somebody has a minor or a major trauma, that's in and of itself. But these are for a lot of shoulder complaints. I don't know, I didn't really do anything. I slept on it wrong, I woke up one morning, and there's vague descriptions. There was no particular incident. Usually, the only incident they relate is the last straw. They say, okay, this morning I reached over and picked up something and it hurt. Probably they had been set up for that long time ago. Today was the last straw. Their body couldn't deal with it anymore, and it became symptomatic. So these problems we see at the shoulder impingement, tendinopathies, long head, supraspinatus, any kind of shoulder instability. Very often, these have been set up prior to that because the scapula wasn't moving correctly, and the body finally got to the point where it couldn't compensate anymore, and it's beginning to break down. Very, very common. So we have to look at the scapula now, and we have to make sure it's mobile and able to move on the rib cage. The scapula needs to do several things. Well, let's talk about its position. First of all, the scapula, if I'm looking from the back, the scapula should be from about T2 to T7. That's where it should be. The medial borders should be vertical. They're not turned like that. They're straight up and down. And they should be roughly, the medial border, about 2 inches from the spinous process of the spine. Now that's general proportions. It varies a little bit, but that's about what we're looking for. If the scapulae are allowed to, with upper cross syndrome, if you remember that, we round our shoulders, they will abduct or protract around the ribcage. I found scapula laterally in the axilla. That's how far around they've come. Okay? So we look for that, okay? We look for elevation above T2 or below T7. We also look for rotation in the scapulae. Usually you look at the inferior angle and you say whether it's rotated laterally or medially and describe it that way. So the scapula needs to be free to move up and down, ab and adduct, and rotate, and then be balanced when it comes back to neutral. All the muscles that attach to the scapula, and there are tons of them, they all have to be theoretically in perfect balance to hold the scapula in that perfect place. What are the odds of that? Not at keyboards, right? Here we are at our computers and all, and desks and doing all this stuff. We get this upper cross thing. So everybody's got a lot of problems with their scapula. First thing we have to do is make sure it's moving. We're going to mobilize the scapula and make sure it's moving in all those cardinal directions. We can do it from 2 positions, prone and sideline. So can I have you turn over? You can put your head up there. Turn over to your stomach.
Oh, okay.
Now, I'm actually going to do this from this side of her body so you can see. I'll do it over here on her left shoulder. Probably better mechanics for me to go over to that side, but I'll do this for demonstration. I think the table's winning at this point.
Oh, man. There you are.
There you go.
Oh, now we're going to bring it. Oh, perfect. Much better. Oh, to bring it down.
We're on the right
Perfect.
Right.
Good, thank you. All right, so here's her scapula. This is one time when I like them to put their hands on the armrests. If they don't, their hands fall forward, the scapula migrates. But I like them to securely have them on the armrest. That keeps the scapula here. I'm just going to push it in those various directions. Check it for mobility. If it's not moving, I'm going to assist it. Mainly what's holding things up here is muscle tone, but they might have restrictions. I've even heard cavitations manipulating the scapula here. So it can be really adhesed on some people. So I'm going to use the angles of the scapula. Here's her scapula, here's her inferior angle here. I'm going to take a grip like this and push it up. She's already not gliding real well. Pushing up like that. Here's her spine of the scapula right here. I'm going to push it down. And all I did was take part of my palm, fit it on her bony protuberance here, right on her spine. It fit nicely. I'm going to use that as a lever. So find a place where your hand is on a bony lever. The levers are going to be the acromion, the spine of the scapula, and the angles of the scapula. Okay? So it's just a matter of getting comfortable. So I'm pushing down and pushing up, this way and this way. Now, she should have some glide that way. I'm going to push out and I'm going to pull in. Push out, I'm going to come to the medial border here and simply push out and pull in. Push out and pull in. See if she's gliding that way. Now, rotation. I'm going to use my bony levers. I'm going to use the inferior angle, and I'm going to use the spine of her scapula. Now watch closely. I stand here, and again, I should be on that side, but I'll do it from this side. I stand here, and I'm on the lateral part of the angle, and then here's the base of her spine of the scapula. This hand is going to go like this, and I'm going to push them. What I'm doing is pushing like this. Okay, it's going to rotate it that way. I'm looking for mobility. She's doing pretty well. Then I switch up here towards the acromion and the other side of the angle and push the other way. Now I'm pushing like this to get it go the other way. So mainly on her, I feel some restriction in being able to glide superiorly on her. Okay, I would stay there. You can work those muscles. You'll also want to get on the medial border of the scapula and make an attempt to get underneath it. That's where a lot of adhesions are. So I'll do that from this side. You'll see it better if I do it on this side. Can we take this hand and put it in the small of your back? Okay, that loosens up her interscapular muscles. I'm going to take this hand on her shoulder and lift it just to soften the muscles. So I'm going to do this. That loosens her up. Hold her here and use my fingers to try to get under her scapula. Usually it's easier at the angle and work up. Right there. Is that tender? You let me know if it's too tender, okay?
Feels good.
Okay. And I feel tension in her rhomboids. I'm just going to work there and pull the scapula off of her rib cage. Okay? Pull it up. Trying to get further under here and pulling up. And you can sometimes feel adhesions, release, and restrictions. Okay? There's a way to get under there from the axilla. I'll show you that in a minute. But as far as this routine is concerned in prone, that's a good way to get under there. Let me show you the routine from sideline. Sometimes it's more efficient this way. Would you lie on this side facing me?
How does that feel, feeling?
Oh, weird but good.
Yeah, it's not often that something's gotten under your scapula like that. It's a new sensation. But you'll see, it looks barbaric.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Like you're gonna pull it
But
off.
you'll be requesting it. Oh, more. Oh. Okay. So, same.
My hand is a little sensitive, just FYI.
Okay, I wonder why. Let's just put this over here. Good. So I'm going to take her through the same routine. Glide up, glide down on this side. Push up, push down. Glide forward, glide backwards, like this. And glide in rotation, this way and this way. She's moving pretty well over here. Now, to get under the scapula, I have her hand in the back, push her shoulder back just a little bit, get way under it here. And you can just work these muscles, stretch them, even if they're
Oh my gosh!
getting way under. You'll find trigger
Does
points.
it hurt?
I have like chronically tender and sore and tight, but it felt good.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels good more. It looks worse than it is. Getting under there. Let me show you a way to get under there from a different angle. If you'd stand for me.
Oh my god. Thank you.
So I'm going to go under her right scapula to get to the subscapularis. So face me this way. I want you to bend at your waist and let the arm just dangle. I usually use a towel. I'm going to go up into her axilla. And her scapula has come down now because her arm is hanging. Here's her scapula. I go up into the axilla, and right underneath the scapula is the subscapularis. How do I confirm that I'm on it? I'm going to ask her to turn her palm up and turn it down. What's the subscap do? Internal rotation. Okay, so I should feel the muscle tighten and release, as she uses it. What I'm looking for are tender points, trigger points, and I might even linger and work on a spot under there if it's a specific spot. Normals are tender. They're gonna be tender. So go in gently, and we're looking for really hot spots to work on. Go ahead and lean forward. That pulls her forward. I take this, I go up in her axilla here, right up there. You doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just know it's gonna be tender.
Okay. How do you know?
'Cause I'm sore.
All right, turn your palm up and turn your palm down, right there. So I confirm I'm on the muscle, it's a big muscle, and I can work. I can work trigger points, I can move up and down, massaging that muscle. And I don't, well, right there, I feel some tender, tense fibers.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's very tense.
and I continue to work that, I won't put you through that.
Oh,
Okay? So nobody's ever gotten up under there before. People have a lot of tension, thank you.
Yeah.
And a lot of adhesions that could be affecting their scapular movement and causing them shoulder pain. So you gotta get up under there if you really wanna loosen things up. It doesn't feel that bad. It looks worse than it really is. Are you okay with that? What I'd like you to do is pair off then. I want you to do the posterior glide from seated, the posterior glide from supine, and I want you to work on the scapulas from prone, supine, standing if you want to.